Good afternoon and welcome to this. Can you believe it? It's our final session at the next World Forum, our final panel session at least. And I have to say, it's a pretty special one. I'm delighted to say that I'm inviting 4 eminent guests to the stage. For this, our next topic, I'm just going to put my computer down here. We've had such a fabulous long day that I'm not sure that my iPad can take the heat. We are struggling with battery content, which is why I brought my laptop on as well, just in case. But it is a huge excitement that I'm now going to address our next topic, which focuses on the importance of addressing gamers in their own language. Now, too often, one might argue, gamers here in the kingdom or gamers in the wider Middle East are playing on games that are not designed specifically for them. They're not designed for their region. They're not telling their stories. But now, this is all about to change. And joining me here on stage are 4 people who are keen to see that change happen. They're keen to see it happen pretty quickly, and I'm delighted to say that joining me here, actually I'm going to start at the end because we've got Dr. Abdullatif bin Mohammed Al-Abdullatif joining us on the stage, and I really am delighted to have you with us, sir, because you're an important figure in the games sector here in the kingdom. Needless to say, there wouldn't be any games being played in this country if Dr. Al-Abdullatif didn't allow them to be played. So he's the CEO of the General Commission for Audiovisual Media. He is the man in charge of the ratings of those games, and a hugely important man, and I'm a very busy man, so thank you so much for joining me here on the stage.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here and talking to all the gamers and all our, we call them our partners and customers.
Well, in many ways, they are indeed, and it's good to sort of, I suppose, meet them face to face. There are so many gaming fans here who, of course, are grateful to you for the speed with which you get those games into the wider market here. So very, very exciting indeed. Other guests who have joined me on the table here, I'm going to work my way back from Dr. Al-Abdullatif. We have Jamie Ottilie, a key figure in the gaming sector, of course, CEO of Telltale Games. They've had massive success with all sorts of series, including the Walking Dead series, among others. They've just shipped a new game, quick plug for them. It's called The Expanse, and it's based on the TV series of exactly the same name on Amazon Prime. Also here, Rami, thank you very much for joining us on the stage, video games developer. He's a spokesperson really within the video games industry for diversity, and he's known for reaching out to games developers in other countries, so couldn't think of a better person to have on this panel, along with, of course, Nazih Fares, head of localization and comms at Four Winds Entertainment. You are truly I mean, I feel bad calling people veterans in their industries when they're younger than me, but you're clearly a veteran in this industry as well. So, gentlemen, a pleasure to have you on stage. Okay, let's kick off, because I want to highlight the significance of localization, the importance of localization. And actually, Nazih, I'm going to turn to you first to give us a little bit of a sort of context around this. This story. No context at all. No pressure at all. Okay, so what is the problems? Okay, to gamers in this country, for the most part, they're playing games that are made outside the Middle East.
That's correct.
Why is that a problem?
The problem is that, you know, language as in general is a portal for culture, is a portal for different nationalities, a portal for different histories and stories, right? So inherently, when most of the gaming industry at its root started between, let's say, Far East Asia, Japan mostly, and then kind of moved into the US with the invasion of, you know, Nintendo and Sega and whatnot, that story became more of a Western story, kind of transcending into the rest of the world, right? We started getting stories about, you know, US Army, Navy SEALs being the, you know, the heroes in games and fighting the bad guy no matter what the bad guy was. And sadly, in most of the time, the bad people were our people, right? People from this part of the world, and it was just a continuation of the sort of stigma and sort of a stereotype of what the West would see this part of the world. And I think the change now in localization and let's say in general culturalization and language acceptance in these games is that it is another form of media and entertainment, but it kind of grounds and brings all forms together, right? You got the music, you got the audio aspect of it, you got the narrative aspect of it, and we have no stories. We have no stories being told by these developers, publishers, and whatnot. We have certain plugs where it's just like, you know, let's put some cultural aspect to it, right? Let's put like a skin of a character that kind of has an exotic Orientalism touch to it, right? But that doesn't work. So we are in a situation now where with all this investment that is happening in this part of the world and all this advancement into building an infrastructure to really create an industry here, we have to start telling our stories. It's our opportunity to tell our story and export those stories because we have a rich history, we have a rich legacy. We have Ibn Battuta, we have Ibn Sina, we have iconic figurehead that kind of spearheaded the way the West is nowadays. Without us, there would be no math, there would be no science, and people need to realize that it's not just yet another war zone region in the world.
Do you know, you speak the truth. I mean, I have to say, that's hugely interesting to hear that. And considering the texture of these games that we've been getting from other environments, you know, from the United States, from Europe, it is, in some ways, I suppose, Dr. Al-Abdullatif, even more surprising that so many games indeed are approved to be published here in the kingdom. I don't think people maybe necessarily realize how many games are allowed here in the kingdom thanks to your organization.
That's true, and we're trying to open the market. One of our mandates in GCAM is to make the content available to people within Saudi Arabia, and the part of the classification itself is to provide the information to families, because we're dealing when it comes to gaming, we're dealing with different age groups, and usually the families are supervising their kids when it comes to finding the best game for them. So if we didn't give the proper classification based on the local and on the local culture, and I don't want to call it restriction, but the local criteria, it wouldn't be easy for the families to monitor their kids and to provide them with the proper guidance when it comes to video games. And this is what we're trying to do. We're not trying to restrict, but we're trying to classify, to give the right classification to each game.
I mean, that is a key. I mean, as a parent who has two young boys, aged 9 and 10, it's those classifications that help a parent choose what games they're going to buy their children for birthdays and presents, for example. But it would be even more exciting, one might argue, if some of those games were actually telling the story of people living here in the kingdom. And I know that localization is something that games developers here are hugely excited about. And I know that we've got two gentlemen on the stage here who are super keen to encourage that work. I'm going to turn now to you, Rami, because this is something you've been campaigning for some time, isn't it?
Right. Yeah, I think this has been the overarching campaign of my career, has been to enable people to tell their own stories. I think what games do that is really unique is they place players in the shoes of the characters they embody, and they allow people to see perspectives and experience worlds that they otherwise wouldn't. And in a book, you might say, you know, the character does something, and in a movie, you might say the main character does something. But in a game, when people talk about it, they say, I did something. And that's a very unique, very intimate connection that people form, and it allows them to reevaluate things that they see. So I think games, more than any other medium, have this very unique opportunity to allow people to see perspectives that they haven't heard yet. And I think a key part of that is play, is that games are about playing. I mean, when you think about it, language is not inherently a part of games, right? It's an addition, it's a dressing, it's something that we use to build worlds, but play is this ancient force that has been throughout humanity. And if you ever want to have a conversation with somebody that speaks a language you don't know, put a ball on the ground and kick it towards them. Yeah. And they'll kick it back. You don't have to talk about it. You don't have to converse. You don't have to understand each other. But this is this really powerful, transcendent quality that games have that for me is really important. And I just started realizing when I was young, I'm Dutch Egyptian, that all the games were being made that by people that look like my Dutch friends. Yeah. And that in a lot of games you were fighting people that look like my Egyptian friends. And I thought, you know, if I go to Egypt, if I go to the Middle East, I will find game developers there. And I didn't, because the industry at that point, 10, 15 years ago, it was young, there wasn't a lot of opportunity, there wasn't a lot of investment. You know, the local governments in the region were trying to figure out what to do with games and how to sort of integrate them into reality here. But, you know, for me, it was Ramadan, and I was playing Animal Crossing, and it's a game that has Christmas in it, and it's a game that has a Chinese New Year in it, and not a mention of Ramadan. Mm. And I was so disappointed that I made it myself, and I put it on the internet, and thousands of Muslims around the world joined to celebrate Ramadan in this video game. And it showed to me that there is so much need, so much demand, so much hope for things that touch on your personal lives for people who play games, that it's been a campaign for me for 15 years to say, okay, if games are a global language that all of us can speak, that all of us can hear, then everybody should speak it. And
I mean, Jamie, you know, there's a rightness in that localization that needs to be expressed, that needs to be highlighted. But I hate to do this, but there's also an economic imperative.
There is.
I mean, you know, there's the pure reasons, and then there are the economic reasons. You know, there are millions of enthusiastic gamers in this region, and they want to see games that tell their stories. As somebody from the United States, as a games developer from the United States, does that excite you? Do the stories of this region excite you?
Absolutely. Our investment here, which is relatively new, initially is commercial. We work with a local partner. We bring our games here. We want a local partner because we tell stories. The magic of our games is that we give our players agency over the story, which means we need an emotional response. We can't just change the words. I don't actually care what words are used. I care that I get the same response from the player. And so that means I need a local partner. I'm not going to find somebody in the US or in Europe that's capable of doing that. And then more importantly, I need a talented storyteller, to do that. And so our interest really lies in finding those storytellers and then hopefully at some point empowering them to tell their stories. We want to give voice to the stories all over the world. Like that's kind of our job. And so that's really our interest. And it started when I first took over Telltale. I had a Saudi company approach me and express interest in what we were doing with Wolf Among Us Season 2. And I asked why, and they reminded me that the main character, Bigby, was based on the Big Bad Wolf in Little Red Riding Hood, and the origin of Little Red Riding Hood was actually a Saudi folktale. Yep. And when they said it, I was like, oh, that's right, and I knew that. Wait, this is a culture steeped in storytelling. Like, why aren't we hearing those stories? And so that's really, this is my first trip here, but that's really our interest here as a company and what we're looking for.
I mean, that's really exciting. I mean, in some ways, Nazih, isn't it surprising that we haven't got more major games producers from elsewhere coming to this region to do that?
Oh. Might sound controversial, but I think after 16 years working with way too many publishers to count now, I think it's a bit of ignorance about the region, really. Like, and I think
Still.
it sounds a bit harsh, and even after this, but because when you talk with people abroad, even in my position, I used to work for Activision Blizzard, and obviously, you know, I was in a better situation where I felt like I could do a change. I could bring these iconic titles and finally telling the story and finally bringing the story to a population that where English literacy was quite low, where also in general it is the 5th most spoken language in the world. There is no excuse at the moment to say we cannot do Arabic. It's just becoming almost like borderline ignorance where the number match, the youth is here. It's a large population of hungry players that want to consume these games, but the language becomes a barrier, right? You can play certain games that are, let's say, no-brainer, right? Shoot and gun and whatnot and all that. But when you want to play these beautiful stories, these MMOs, these RPGs, where you really need to feel you're into it and understand the true meaning of these stories, you can't if you don't know the language. So we got to a situation where, you know, many games have been trying to, you know, many game publishers have been trying to tap into the market. Game Engine, thankfully, have been starting to support more and more the language, because it is a difficult language to code, because, again, Game Engine, most of the development scene was in the West, which is a left to right language.
Yep.
So we go to a situation where, okay, we can't really understand what's going on, and oh wait, it's cursive all the time, and there's like also cultural stuff that we have to pay attention, because like I've worked pre-GCAM era, and it was super difficult to sell a game in the region, because automatically developers would sadly self-censor themselves. They would say, oh, this is never gonna play because like we know what the region likes and we know what is taboo there, let's not bother. But it's not. Once GCAM came aboard and brought proper guideline and actually started working with publishers and developers to really guide them through what has to be kind of looked upon, now we're starting to see more games. We're starting to see beautiful games like Ubisoft launching, you know, the next Assassin's Creed with Arabic voiceover by default. And this is the progress that we need to see more and more from, sadly, from bigger and bigger players, so that people at the bottom would start by default going for Arabic.
Well, let's get into that, because I'm quite excited to hear about just how many video games GCAM has actually reviewed, because I think it's an important line to put in the sand here, because obviously you face, Dr. Al-Abdullatif, you do face challenges of age classification and other perspectives that you have to consider when you're allowing these games to be played here in the kingdom.
Yeah.
You know, how do you address these major topics when you're looking at whether or not a game is appropriate to be played here in the kingdom?
Well, let me first of all talk about, answer your question of how many games have we reviewed.
Yes.
I think the number is around 4.6K games that was issued a classification from GCAM. The main issue and I totally agree with Nazih when he said that there are some obstacles when it comes to localization. Localization actually, and let me be a little bit academic and doctoral with you right now. The localization can start from just putting the menus in Arabic. This is the least, to including the whole cultural experience within the game. And I think some of the developers have tried to put some efforts, and you can see the demand for localized games because it will give satisfaction to the user. I'm not talking about Arabic only. I'm talking about all the language, all the cultures. When we started, let me give you an example. When FIFA started introducing commenting, on the games in Arabic. It went huge, it went viral. Everybody was excited about it. And it was very simple. Programming-wise, I think it's piece of
Very
cake.
straightforward.
It's not that difficult.
VO files.
So putting the effort there, you will open markets. And the difficulty, coming back to the difficulty from our side and from the publisher side. From the publisher side, you said, as you said it, Nazih, it's difficult for the publisher to understand what are taboos, what are the difficulties, or what are right or wrong. The publisher is always trying to sell. They don't want to offend anybody. And this is where we come. We have provided around, in the 7 months that I've been in GCAM, we've provided a lot of support to a lot of publishers, and they come to us as a consulting partner to them to ask us about some of the issues, some of the cultural issues. Are they good? Are they bad? And we answer it ourselves, or we go to some of our partners and the cultural agencies that we have in Saudi Arabia that we could help. And we're addressing everybody right now, and if there's any of the publishers who want any help when it comes to cultural issue, we're open. We can answer any question. We can refer you to subject matter experts who would help you to capture the real culture of Saudi Arabia, the real culture of the region, because we are all in a similar, we have similar cultures and values. The classification or the difficulties when it comes to classification, there are very clear criteria that we have, but sometimes we fall into a region in which we ask, it's not clear to us nor the publisher if that's okay or not, if it's going to be taken soft or hard when it gets published, because us as a compliance agency who classifies, we have to listen to people as well. Not everybody have the same interpretation of certain restrictions. I have a different interpretation than Nazih. I have it different than from you. And this is why whatever I allow my kids to see, you don't allow them, or vice versa. So this is the most difficult part when it comes to classification. Sometimes it gets subjective in a way.
Yeah.
And however you try to go down to a micro level, it will still be subjective. And I think this is part of the difficulties of the job. And we're trying to find ways, we're trying to rally enthusiasts to watch it with us and give us their opinion. And this will give you some kind of a relief when you release or give a specific classification to a game. It will give you a relief that you have done the right judgment for that game.
I mean, what's so interesting is that I think perspectives from the outside of the kingdom might be that it's quite tricky to get a game classified in this country, particularly if you've made it in the United States.
Not anymore.
But that number, 4,600 games that have been classified so far, that does not sound like you're turning loads of people down. It sounds like, in fact, that games are very welcome in this country.
They are very welcomed. The publishers are very cooperative with us.
Yes.
When it comes to publishing games, we are one of the largest markets in the area. The market sizes are more than $1 billion, and it is important to them to release the games to the country. We are one of the fastest systems for classifications in the world, by the way. The cooperation that's happening between us and I call them our partners, the publishers, is very high, and we always make sure that we want to give the best experience for the players without any anything that could restrict or could cause any obstacles when it comes to releasing the games.
But I suppose that the biggest solution would be for more games to be made right here in this region,
Yes,
for them to be
course.
localized from the ground up, because then you're not going to be facing any problems at all with, you know, a language difficulty or a cultural sensitivity. So let's talk about the narrative. Let's talk about the stories that need to be told that would make great games. Rami, you know, what would you suggest?
I mean, I've been talking to lots of developers here and people in the region. I've seen incredible games. I've seen games being developed by very small teams that are just starting up now, 2 people. I've seen large international collaborations, including a game that was entirely about you know, the 12th century, sort of like Golden Age and Ibn Sina and you know, all of those stories. Beautiful games that tell of our culture and our story. And I think in that case, actually, the question obviously becomes sort of the opposite. Like, how do we tell these stories in a way that is genuine, that is sincere, that speaks to our values, our culture, that speak to our stories and our history and the amazing achievements of you know, the region? And how do we export those out? How do we localize our content in a way that is accessible to people outside of the region? And I think those types of collaborations, these sort of international collaborations with the leadership of a studio being from here, being raised here, and then bringing a lot of the latent talent around the world to work with us. I think those are really where the large opportunities are, because I'll be really frank, I miss these stories in games. Like, I've grown up Dutch Egyptian, and every story that I've heard in the West has a video game, and every story I hear in the Arab world, like my dad tells me stories about old Egypt or about New Egypt, about, you know, the region. I'm just incredibly sad that I can't play them without them being funneled through the lens of the West. Right? Like, I want to play a game about Egypt. It's going to be the way some guy in France sees Egypt, right? And
Yeah,
that's
it's the last thing you want.
Yeah.
and that's frequently what happens. So I think as the region grows and strengthens, as developers here gain access and confidence and structure to work with, we'll see a very large growth in the creative output of here. And then I think the fun part will be figuring out how we localize our stories for the rest of the world instead of the other way around.
I love that line. And unbelievably, we only have 3 minutes left of this session, and I feel like we could talk about this for the next 3 hours. It is absolutely fascinating. I'm gonna come to you, Jamie, just briefly, because I just want to sort of really tease out the challenges that games developers such as yourself face when trying to get them ready for the Arabic language, for example. Now, why are more games not being translated?
I don't actually think it's the challenges of rating. It's been made pretty straightforward. I actually like your rating system better than the one that we have in the US. It's clearer.
Yeah, it makes more sense.
It's very straightforward in terms of what we can do. The challenge for us has really been market size, the costs of localization. You touched on the language issues, that we don't necessarily take it into account when we start a game, and we need to. Our games are fully voiced. Voice talent is expensive. It's performance capture. We would need a facility here, a talent pool here, a voice director here, all of those elements to be able to do it. And unfortunately, at least for our genre, that the market isn't quite there to support that level of investment. The most exciting thing I've seen since I'm coming are the number of small teams experimenting. I think a regional market that makes content for this, that's made here for here, that ignores the West and everybody else and focuses on what people want here is the answer to that. Ultimately, games are a craft. You have to keep making them to get better at it.
Yep.
Growing that ecosystem will eventually lead to stories that will naturally transition to the rest of the world. This all started in Japan, really. I mean, Atari earlier, but ultimately when I was a kid, most of the games I really liked came from Japan, and they were localized really badly into English. And so then that migrated to the West, and perhaps now it's this region's turn to take a leadership role there.
So, Nazih, we have the stories, we have the enthusiasm, we have the support of the classification agency. Any hurdles that you can see in the coming years?
No, I think in general, it's maybe like the change of vision as let's say, as the local talent happening here. Like, I'm super impressed at the investment that they're bringing right here. Like, I wish I was still here when that happened. That would have probably changed my career, and I didn't have to, go through so many hurdles to get to where I am. But also a reminder that bringing, big names, big leadership, without having people at the bottom level executing, right? We're not here, like, and again, might again be controversial, but like, let's not just do the same mistake that other region has done, right? Bringing veteran people into the country, let them lead this new industry, and then they start bringing, importing their external talent that come from other part of the world. We need to build the infrastructure from bottom up, whether it's through education, building educational program, partnering up with universities that teach that topic, that teach gaming industry topics, whether it is game development, narrative development, script writing, audiovisual, like all that aspect. We have to start on that end, and this is maybe my little recommendation to the future of the industry here, is to not make the same mistake that has happened in every single underserved region, which is, let's bring the West to help us. We can help ourselves. We have the means to do it. We just need to trust in ourselves, trust in our stories and our history. We've done it. We've done it thousands and thousands of years ago. We were the Fertile Crescent, after all.
A call to action. There's nothing I like more than to polish off a panel with a nice call to action. Gentlemen, it's been a great pleasure to have you join us here on the stage. Thank you so much for your valuable time and your valuable input. It was, I mean, just genuinely fascinating. And I'm sure everyone in the audience would like to join me here to applaud our fabulous guests. Thank you very much indeed for joining me here on stage. First of all, Dr. Abdullatif bin Mohammed Al-Abdullatif. Jamie, absolutely wonderful to have you here. Rami as well. And of course,
Nazih.
Yes. Can you tell it's reaching the end of my day? Thank you so much, gentlemen. It's been wonderful to have you with us. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Really, really great. I will lead you off stage because I'm going to be picking up Lucy, who's going to be joining me. And then so I'll march forwards, and then I'm going to turn around and march right back. Because goodness me, Lucy, what did you think about that? Localization and that call to action at the end.
Yes, and such an important conversation to have as well, and a great way to kind of round up the day as well. And great panelists, great knowledge, and that call to action was really brilliant as well. I'm just going to step out the way while they get ready for our next panel.
Yeah, it was really impassioned. It was really impassioned, and I think it's really important that we see that growth from the ground up. And of course, you do have organizations such as the Giga Project Neon, who are already working with organizations like DigiPen, the hugely respected University of DigiPen, to encourage more local talent.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that's been a long time coming, and it's great to see that there's a real drive